So you have a quorum now with you, Hoey, and Frederick.
Okay. See if I can see who I can see. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Kelly.
Having some issues with my computer, so I had to use my tablet. I'm gonna try to get in as soon as I can reboot here. I can't see, so there are just 6 of us here, right? Well, the clerk and
There's 5 in the clerk.
Yeah, we have
Five in the clerk.
Sergio, Megan, Sonia, myself, and you.
And I have to
Okay.
hop off again tonight around 6:45. Just so that you are aware if I disappear, because I have to be someplace shortly after 7.
Okay, yeah, we're on a time crunch also. Okay, so welcome to the Common Council's Operations and Ethics meeting. Today is February 22nd. We're meeting to interview members of the Reapportionment Commission. We had interviews on the 17th. This is just a follow-up meeting to, we got to get to 9 members of that commission. So we're continuing our interviews. Members of the Operations Committee here are Ms. Frederick, Mr. Hoey, and myself. We're also joined by council members Keegan and Adams, along with our clerk, Danielle Gillespie. So we're not starting until 5:45. The first person we have is Brenda Robinson. And there've been 2 additions from the original list, Ms. Brenda Robinson and Judith Maza. We had issues, all along trying to get folks engaged and involved and to volunteer. And so they stepped up to give us some more options. We're really trying to get like a diversity, not only of professions, but also of wards and areas of the city. And so that's why we added the extra folks to try to round out and get good representation on this commission throughout the city. We're also joined by Ms. Romero. Welcome, Ms. Romero.
Hi, everyone. Thanks.
And I apologize if I miss anyone. I'm on a little baby screen. So yeah, until I can get my computer up. So we had some good candidates the other day. And this is a continuation. Again, reapportionment occurs every 10 years after the census in order to redraw, if necessary, the ward lines to make sure equal representation is in each ward. And so that's the process we're going through right now. And like I said, we had some good candidates, and really just from being familiar with some of the folks that we had or have that have signed up and came forth to be a part of this. I think we can't go wrong. We got some good experience, diversity of professions, quite a few people on here that know the city, whether it be from work or just growing up here. So I think we got a good shot at ending up with a good product after the process is done. So we're waiting for our first person is a 5:45 person. I don't know if Miss Robinson is available right now. If so, we could just start right now. Unless someone else on the committee has question, comment. Yeah, I think we all want to get moving on this thing and have folks get to work on it.
Maybe Danielle's making phone calls to get the other 2 members of the committee.
She did inform me that she was going to pop off for a minute and do that. So,
Kelly, did you know Earl Millington by any chance? He was an architect at Albany.
Earl Millington doesn't sound familiar.
All right.
No.
I didn't know if he's in your ward or not. He owns property. Well, he lives in Altamont, but he has property downtown Central going down to Sheridan. But he passed away. I was at the wake tonight. He actually died Tuesday, but they didn't find him till Friday, which was sad.
Wow.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
We have Corey joined us too, just let you know.
Okay, yes, we're joined by Council President Ellis. Welcome, President Ellis.
Hello.
We're just we're supposed to start at 5:45 with our first
Yeah, I saw that.
applicant of the night. So for President Ellis, were you on the council during you weren't on the council the last time we did the reapportionment, were you?
10 years ago? No.
It was after that, right? You
Yep.
were a little bit after. Yeah. Yeah. So this process, we're lucky enough to have a few people familiar with
Hmm.
the process, willing to take part and volunteer. So I don't know if you saw from our last round of applications, we had Sean Morris in here. She interviewed, so we got good folks, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly Gabriella has her hand up.
Okay, all right, I saw a thumbs up and a few things happening. Go ahead, Gabriella. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Meg. Yeah, I like to emote when I don't have my video on, it's just so you guys know that I'm also participating. So I just wanted to add a quick update on the council rules modification. Richard, Tom, and I are kind of trying to communicate via email to set down a meeting.
Gabriella, you're cutting out if you're still speaking.
Oh, can you hear me now?
So
We-
I don't, because this wasn't included in the meeting notice.
Oh.
If you want to have this conversation, I would, maybe see if you could do it during the caucus.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I can do it then. Sure. My apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Gillespie.
I see a phone number here. I believe it's Dr. Robinson. If you bear with me 1 second, we'll let them in and then confirm.
Okay.
Good evening. Is this Dr. Robinson with us?
No, it's Alfredo. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm calling in
Okay.
today. Thank you.
Thank
Okay. Yes, we're also joined by Councilmember Ballerin.
Danielle, thank you so much for sending all that stuff out for the council on the reapportionment. It's very much appreciated that you put all that together.
I'm just trying to get Dr. Robinson on the line, so forgive the slight delay.
Okay, let's see if I can make this work. And I'm going to try to stick, closer. We allotted 15 minutes for each person. We kind of went over, and I kind of let people go over. It was interesting, and we gained a lot of information. I got a lot of information the last time around, but I'm going to try to stick to the tight timeline and not make folks wait. I believe Mr. Pichardo has a hard stop because he has some work stuff that he has to get to. So we'll be respectful and mindful of that as we ask our questions. And in the event that we have any questions that the person can either answer while we're here, or you think of one down the line, we could always, through Danielle, forward any additional questions to the applicants.
So we have Dr. Robinson coming in the meeting space for the subcommittee to begin the interviews.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Dr. Robinson. You're muted.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks. So we're meeting to do the interviews for reapportionment. We redraw the lines every 10 years after the census to make sure representation is adjusted for based on the population. Thank you for your interest. We've been starting these off by kind of just letting folks tell us a little bit about themselves, why they're interested, and then the members get to ask questions. And obviously, I part of your interest was that I asked you to participate, and all members have been trying to get folks out. But go ahead. We'll start.
So my name is Dr. Brenda Robinson. It's a pleasure to be with you all. And I did speak to Councilman Kimbrough, as I often do. But I am interested in this commission because drawing lines and knowing the boundaries and making sure things are accurate and making sure that they reflect our census is very important because it certainly impacts our weighted vote and a lot of other things. And I use the ward map all the time, whether I'm applying for a grant or many other things. So those maps and those lines are very important. So that's why I was happy to have a conversation with Councilman Kimbrough, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I applied.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. So we'll start with committee members first. If you have questions, and Mr. Hoey, I see your hand.
Dr. Robinson, it's always a pleasure to meet with you, and you're so involved in the community. So I've asked this question of all the people who are applying, and it's an important one. Do you have the time commitment for the next, we're hoping it'll be 6 months meeting. Can you spare the time? I know you're involved very much in the community. Yes. To be involved in this.
Right. And I certainly evaluated the commitment. I talked to Councilman Kimbrough about it as well. And the 6-month commitment, those couple of meetings, whether it's every 2 weeks or every week, I certainly have the time and will make the time to do that. When I commit to something, I certainly commit to it. I show up, do my job, get the work done, and help the commission or the committee, whatever I'm working on, help them move forward. So certainly dedicated and committed to what I set out to do.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hoey. Any other committee members? Okay. Ms. Keegan, you have any questions for Dr. Robinson?
Yeah, I didn't even put my hand up. I'm also going to ask the same question that I've been asking everyone, Dr. Robinson. So I appreciate you bearing with me. You have an amazing resume in doing, public health out in the community. And, part of the role for this committee is not only engaging with the community, but it's also being able to apply data appropriately to our city maps. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to us about, anything in your professional and or personal background that would lend to, being able to do that and understand that process?
Mhm. Well, quite often data collection is a part of what I do and a part of healthcare and even being in the community. Whether it's times when I sat on the local planning committee and we collected data in regards to the community and the population and applying that to some of the equity items that we wanted to see in the revitalization plan downtown, whether it's looking at the demographics of the community and being able to apply that to care delivery and resources. Even when asking for resources, being able to compile data and apply that to what your ask is and what you feel is necessary. Also, data is also important so that you can see a deficit. So if you're collecting that data and you see that it's a small percentage of care being received over at X, then you know good and well that you need to earmark or identify some funding for that area. But asking certainly requires data to support that. So.
Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate your response. And I realize it's a slightly different skill set, but I think it translates very well to a lot of your work history in terms of what the commission is going to be doing here in the Albany community.
Thank you.
Kelly ran away.
Period.
Just had everything dump out of my bag. It's one of them days. So any other members, council or okay. All right. So the intent. Actually, do you have any questions for us?
No.
Okay. And so what we're doing is this is our second session of doing the interviews. Where after this, we should have enough folks to go through, make some decisions, and what we'll do is you should be hearing from us in the next week or so because we want to try to get the team together and get started on this. So thank you for your interest and for always showing up.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair, because John Raphael Pichardo was so gracious in allowing him to push his time back so that we could make sure that Dr. Robinson got on and the committee was able to meet with her. He's here. Do you want me to let him out? We can start at 5:51.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Mr. Pichardo?
I'm good. Trying to adjust back to this weather from not being in Central America now.
Yeah, good for you. The next time, take me with you. So thank you for your interest in applying for the Reapportionment Commission. I almost feel foolish explaining, like I explained to everyone else, we do it every 10 years. It's redrawing the lines, making sure votes are, everyone's equally represented when we vote. You got all that. You put this all together. So, but what we've been doing is just having folks kind of jump in and explain, why they want to be a part of this, and then after that, members ask questions.
So my reason for wanting to join in on this is, the census is very important every 10 years. What most people don't know about, since I've attended the university and lived in Albany on and off for several years, is I've lived in both the uptown and the downtown wards, now currently living in the second ward. I have seen such a shift in the population myself, and even with serving as counsel to the council, seeing all the new development that has come up. So my hope is now with all the census tract data coming around to seeing where that population growth has been. As we know, Albany has had an increase in the population, but myself, I want to know exactly where has it grown. So that way we can redraw the lines and to make sure that everybody has that one person, one vote in the wards and that there's equal representation. So that's my interest in this commission.
Thank you, sir. So with that, Mr. Hoey?
Hey, JR, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Tom.
I wish you, and bring me to Belize the next time too, please. So I'm asking everybody the same question. I'm looking at your resume and I know you're very involved in the community and in your job. My question to everybody is, do you have the time commitment to follow through on this all the way through? We're hoping it'll be over in 6 months, maybe meeting every other week and putting time in. So that's my question. Do you have the time to be on this commission?
Yep, when I spoke to President Pro Tem Kimbrough about this, about why I wanted to join this, and this is a really big, I know this is a big commitment, but it's a necessary job, and I know I want to make sure that this goes through. The redrawing of the lines is important along with the work that goes with it. So I have the time, and I will commit to this to the end. I want to make sure this gets to the end, and that my hope is that when this commission is done and our recommendations are made to the council, as the process will involve the council either accepting the lines that we draw or rejecting them, my hope is that after all the times that we've done that, the council will accept them.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Pichardo. Any other committee member questions? Okay.
Councilwoman
Ms.
Frederick
Ms.
has a
Frederick?
question.
Hi, JR. Welcome back.
How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good.
You look good. So just a quick question. Obviously, you have a great legal background and you've served with us in the past. Could you explain how you're going to apply your legal profession and your legal background to the commission if you were to proceed forward?
So as you know, their state has their protocols on what is allowed in terms of the redrawing of the lines. My experience when I was at the state Senate, I was there when we were redrawing the state assembly lines, the congressional lines. So based on my analysis, I want to make sure that that we're applying the right legal analysis on drawing the lines, making sure that representation is represented well, both by all demographics, and as well as making sure that there's equal proportion to, between the area and also the demographics of it.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Keegan.
I really appreciate that I don't even have to put up my hand anymore in these interviews. Welcome back again, and thank you for kind of stepping up to continue to serve Albany. And again, we all miss you, even though I only got to miss you for a very short period of time. I've been asking this question of everyone, and I know you have an exemplary legal background to be able to do this job, and I think that will be very helpful on the committee to have somebody who can kind of wade through the legalese and all of this. But, I've been asking folks, part of this job is really being able to look at data, particularly census data, and apply that to mapping. And I was hoping that you could kind of speak to any experience that you might have with being able to kind of figure all of that out. That's my question.
That's it's with the census tract data, as you know, we have to pull all the data from the census tract and pull it into what each wards are. It's very similar to what we had to do 10 years ago. What a lot of people don't understand when it comes to the census tract data is, the feds use that for funding purposes, grant purposes, and pulling all that data, it's like a mishmash. It's really, okay, what's this? Because as you know, some census tract data, they overlap with certain other municipalities. So we have to learn how to cut it out and just focus just on Albany and making sure it's applicable to each of the wards, and just making sure that it's just really a data dump, how I put it, and just really making sure that you apply it. I mean, the census data is one of the most treasured data that the country does. That's how we get funding from the feds. When I was doing the 2010 census, I always remind people of how certain grants get to certain areas because of based on the population on those census tract data. And that's why the census every 10 years is always important. But applying to the data, it's really just, pulling it out, synthesizing it, making sure you have wound it right up. And that's really the majority of it, as well as applying the legal, background onto it and making sure that it's done correctly.
Thank you. That was very helpful, JR.
Yeah, so any,
Do you guys mind if I punch in?
okay, Mr. Ballerin, go ahead.
It's a little harder on the phone. On the phone, I apologize. You can't raise your hand on the phone. I just had a quick question. One, Jay, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had some time off to re-energize. And I'm glad to hear your voice again. And glad you're doing well. I just had a simple question. I know a lot of our neighborhood associations are split through several different wards and through several different representatives. How much consideration of trying to give, representation or proper representation for these neighborhood associations would you give in your contemplating the discussion of redrawing the lines?
I just want to make sure I heard the question correctly. You're asking how much of the neighborhood association input would be involved in trying to make the lines?
Yes, because there's some neighborhood associations that have several representatives that are within their boundaries, and then others that only have a few, and some that only want one or two, so that they have more of a focus. But are those going to be organizations you'll be getting input from as well?
I mean, when it comes to redrawing the lines, everybody's input is just as important. The neighborhood associations, particularly like Hana and the Uptown and Second Avenue and a whole bunch of the other ones, I think they're very helpful. I think I would give them more weight, honestly. But again, making sure that the legal background is played onto it. But I think anybody who's on the ground and involved and knows how their wards or their census tract is, I think it's invaluable information because they know their wards. I mean, as many people know, there's some wards when they've been drawn over the years, that neighborhoods were split. Is that something that is wanted? No, but based on the legal background and also with redrawn lines, that's how it comes about. I mean, I personally would like to avoid that, but when it comes down to redrawing the lines, that's just what happens. But of course, the neighborhood associations, their input would be always valuable and it's always wanted.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? So with that, Mr. Pichardo, do you have any questions for the committee?
Nope. Just want to say it's great to see everybody.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much. This is our second round of interviews. We're trying to, let folks know where we're at in the next week or so. We should be able to make our decision or choices maybe tonight or fairly soon thereafter, and then we'll be in touch.
The sooner the better, as you know that we have a deadline coming up very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Pichardo. It's good to see you. Thank you.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
If you like, I could reach out to the 6:15 to see if they could join us a little earlier.
Sure, if you'd like. Yeah, that'd be helpful.
This is Emily coming up, correct?
Emily Laughlin, looks like.
These are going faster than I thought they were going to be.
Oh, the night is still young.
I feel like we've gotten into a groove since last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing when you're ahead of schedule. That's not a bad way to start.
No, not at all. Last time we had overruns on time, but I mean, it was very informative. But yeah, we had asked a lot of questions and got a lot of information from some knowledgeable folks that have been around this process in the past. Right.
Now I have to put my headphones in my other computer so I can use my desk phone from home. I'll be back.
Okay. Okay, we'll be standing by. Got some very well educated folks in this mix. Very impressive resumes.
And a lot of planners, which is good, I think, because most of those folks have some really good ArcGIS mapping skills, or they're used to contextualizing everything into like a visual data set. So.
Yeah. Like we're too efficient for our own good.
Kelly, is the plan then to vote tonight after we finish the interviews?
I'd like to. I want to discuss that other thing that I mentioned to you as a possibility as we move forward, which based on our conversation makes perfect sense. But
Okay.
we can, and if we don't end up voting on all and deciding on all, that's fine too. Just as long as in the next week we make our decision, move forward from there. We just can't sit on it because we got the interview set up, and I think everyone's ready to move forward and have these folks get started. So yeah.
We wouldn't be able to vote as a council on Thursday, right? It has to age who we pick, or if we.
No, that's. I don't believe that's. Well, we have to get the legislation put together for. You're right. No, you're right, because we send letters out. We and sign because there are appointments to this commission, so it takes a lengthier period of time. So, yeah. And that's usually the stuff that Danielle and JR make happen. You know, what we do what we do in this space, and then they take it and turn it into something functional.
Emily
Yes.
will be joining us momentarily. She's gonna hop on right now.
Okay.
And I missed the functional, the beginning piece of what was said.
Oh, yeah, there was a question on how we proceed from here. We're gonna vote.
Okay.
We're gonna vote, and then, and
Got it.
I said, you and our staff, you and JR, you take what we do in these meetings, or JR used to, and turn it into something functional for us, you know.
So more than likely, the whomever you narrow it down to would be invited to come to the caucus so that the full council can meet them. So, and then here's Emily. So she's got impeccable timing.
Mhm. Hello, you pronounce your last name Laughlin?
Hi, yeah, Laughlin.
Okay, all right, so, hello, I'm Kelly Kimbrough, I'm the 4th Ward council member here and the chair of this committee. Again, we're doing interviews for Reapportionment Commission. It's something we do every 10 years to redraw the lines, the ward lines for voter representation. Thank you for your interest. We've been having folks introduce themselves, explain why they want to be a part of this process, and then we'll go around the room and council members ask questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, hi, yes, my name's Emily Laughlin. I saw the call for applicants and I was interested because I've lived in the area now. Again, I went to college here and then I moved back about 4 years ago. And I've been working in the city of Albany. I've been going to the University of Albany, interested in urban planning and transit. And this really kind of fit in with those interests and learning more about the community and also, you know, giving back, being a part, you know, understanding the processes of how, you know, things happen here. So I thought this was a good way to get involved and, you know, learn more about that and contribute.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll start with Mr. Hoey. And
Hi,
then
Emily,
Ms. Frederick.
Thank you for applying, and very impressive resume. The question I ask all the candidates who have applied, will you have time to do this, the commitment, probably around 6 months, maybe meeting every other week? You know, can you swing it with everything on your plate?
Yeah, you know, definitely. I definitely took that in mind. I know you saw my resume. I started working at CDTA last month, pretty recently. So I'm starting that. I'm working on wrapping up my master's research paper. So I have a few things going on, but I've been juggling school and working full time since the fall semester of 2019. So I've had a pretty busy schedule. I don't mind being busy, and I can definitely commit evenings. My job is, you know, during the day, 7 to 4, 8 to 5-ish. So I'm pretty free in the evenings.
Thank you. Thank you for applying too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frederick?
Hi, Emily. Thanks for applying.
Hi.
Taking a look at your resume and what you shared, you're pursuing your master's in regional planning. And then I saw some volunteerism within the geography space. Could you just explain a little bit about what that's like and also its relevancy and how you see you being able to apply that into the reapportionment committee?
Yeah, so I was interested in kind of how places become better. So I pursued the master's in urban planning to learn more about how to do that through like transit and pedestrian and bike oriented projects. That's what I'm interested in. A lot of my classwork was focused on those type of projects. My volunteer time with the geography and planning student organization, we, you know, looked at ways to engage the community. It was tough during COVID. It was hard to get together, but we constantly looking to do like walking tours, things like that. So we were always trying to get out and get into the community. So that when I saw the call for applicants, that really spoke to a lot of the work that I was doing in my grad program, with data analysis, looking at census data, understanding what it means, how to portray that to other people. Data can be kind of wonky for people. Mapping can be difficult to understand if it's not, presented in a way that makes sense. So learning how to kind of take what the census says, filter that through my understanding, and then feed that back out to other people.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, Ms. Keegan.
I feel like you kind of sort of answered my question, my standard question that I've been asking everyone. And I realize that this is in some ways part of your background, but I've been asking everyone, part of this job and this role is really being able to take all of our census data and applying it to a map that makes sense and also preserves all of the federal and state voting rights laws that are in place. And I was really hoping that you could speak to any direct experience that you might have in being able to translate data into an actual visual mapping presentation for the community.
Yeah, so I did work very similar to that at the SBDC. I was helping clients, business entrepreneurs, business owners develop business plans and cash flow projections that they then took to banks for funding and grant opportunities. So a lot of that was looking at the market opportunity for whatever that they were proposing. So we were pulling census data, population information on like transit systems nearby, key things like that, and doing both the narrative and table formats to present that information. Sometimes mapping would be included in that too, if it made sense, if it helped the business plan. So I did that in a professional sense. We also, obviously we practiced that in my grad program as well. I did a mock bicycle and pedestrian master plan for the community I used to live in Central New York, Norwich, New York. And through that, I took kind of what I was proposing and made it into, some proposed maps for where bike lanes would make sense and pedestrian connections, trail connections would make sense based on, the DOT's vehicles, average daily vehicles counts and things like that. So both professionally and academic practice in mapping and presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ballerin, did you have any question you wanted to ask? I can't see you, but.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. I got my computer up now. Though I only have one quick question. So one of my big things is I want to make sure that neighborhood associations and residents have their input heard. So I just want to know if you're affiliated with any of the neighborhood associations in the area, and how much would you weigh their input in your decision making? Thank you, and also thank you very much for applying and being willing to volunteer your time on this committee.
Yeah, so I'm not directly involved with any of the neighborhood associations. I live in the Normanskill area, so when I go to the dog park over here, so I'm familiar with some of the people who are involved. And again, public participation is super important. Going back to my master's education, one of the things that they definitely instill is the importance of that and finding different ways to engage the community. Whether it's going to them or doing surveys, they kind of taught us a gamut of survey and public participation methods. So that would definitely be important to include and get input on.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on, do you have any questions for us?
So I guess my main question would be, what are your expectations of the members who were involved in the commission. So like getting at the question that I just answered about public participation, is there any other key things that you see as super important to this process?
No, just the community input piece is important. I mean, the data is the data, which really is the most important part of this. I mean, community input is also, but in terms of moving things, I mean, the data is where the population shifted, and that would determine where the movement would be. So that's important. But there are going to be some public meetings. You know, you got to interact with the community. So I mean, that's important. Community engagement. Once you all are together and assembled as a group, you will decide how you best do that through some meetings and getting input from the neighborhood. That's probably the most obviously the population data and the neighborhoods, the community are most important. We're looking. We had 2 rounds of interviews. We're looking to make some decisions in the next week. Probably after this meeting, we'll make some. And so probably in the next week or so, you'll be hearing from us about moving forward one way or the other. Appreciate your interest. This is really important work. Your skill set fits with what we need. We got a good group of applicants. You'll be among a good group of folks should we end up selecting you. So thank you for the interest. Any other questions for us? Or
No, I don't think so, but thank you for your time chatting tonight.
thank you. Okay, you have a good night.
Awesome. Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, another pretty good applicant. Skill sets there, understands what we need, very, very fortunate with the folks that stepped up. So how far off are?
Yeah, I feel like you guys have a pretty good balance of people who have a lot of experience doing like community organizing and communications, the legal background, and then the actual like data and map building components. And those are going to be critical to this process.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like JR mentioned, it'd be interesting to see where the shift was. We know the numbers change, but which area, which ward? I mean, I can imagine. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Would have been nice to get up over 100,000 folks, but maybe next time. And I would argue that we are. We're there.
Yeah, we are.
Beyond. We just it's just. COVID screwed a lot, and
Trump
that too.
ended it
Yeah,
sooner
intentionally.
than,
Yeah, sure did. So yeah. So next we have what's Allison Curran. Yeah.
Like Prairie.
Curran, is that how you pronounce it?
Prairie, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Let's see.
I just got off the phone with Allison Creerand, and she's on her way to join us.
Okay. Perfect. So how are you doing, Miss Creran?
Hello, pretty good. How about all of you?
We're good. We're good. My name is Kelly Kimbrough. I'm the chair of the committee. I'm a Fourth Ward Council member here in the city. Thank you for your interest in being a part of the commission. Again, it's a process we go through every 10 years after the census to redraw the lines to make sure everyone's got properly represented.
Gotcha.
What we're doing is we're having applicants basically introduce themselves and kind of say a little bit of why they want to be a part of the commission, and then members ask questions.
Sure.
So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Well, it's great to meet you all. I'm Allison Creerand. I work for the state of New York, and I work. And I've been living in Albany for almost 7 years now. I'm originally from Rochester, but have been really enjoying my time here in Albany. I've always had an interest with, being involved with, local community stuff. And I having gone to the Maxwell School at Syracuse, I have strong passion for civic engagement and being a part of the community. And this seemed like a really great opportunity to be involved in something that's really important. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Okay, I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right. So we'll start with Councilmember Hoey, then Ms. Frederick.
Hi, Allison. Thank you for applying and, taking the time to meet with us tonight. I ask all the applicants the same question, and I'm going to ask you too. Do you have the time commitment, the time to be able to commit to being on this commission? We foresee probably at least 6 months, maybe meeting every other week. The meetings most likely will be virtual, but just want to make sure that you can handle it and stick with it to the end, which is super important that you start, that you follow
Absolutely.
through. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. And it sounds like meeting every other week, and that the flexibility of it being virtual, I would be surprised if I couldn't make that work. So I think that it would definitely be doable, and I think that it would be something I'd want to be involved in too. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Hi,
Ms. Frederick.
Allison.
Hey.
Thank you for applying. In your cover letter, you mentioned briefly the importance of being impartial in the process. and obviously a very, very important characteristic to have. Wondering if you can describe in your own words, why that would be, why that is important to the reapportionment process.
Sure. I think that the idea of representation, it shouldn't be impacted by how things are drawn on a map. It's something that should be impacted by, how people vote, and adding in another dimension of, strategically drawing a map out and, strategically grouping together people inherently is just taking away the voices that, that should be getting their words in. So I'm thinking my thought of it is that adding this a different dimension of bias of drawing a map is just tainting how democracy is working in terms of representation. So it just feels very important to me that this shouldn't be impacting or it shouldn't be impacted by any sort of bias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Keegan?
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here this evening. I have been asking this question of everyone because it's sort of a critical component of how this work is done. But, this process really requires us to take all of our census data and develop a meaningful map of the city boards based upon our census data and how our population has or has not shifted. And I know that you, based upon your resume, have a lot of experience, particularly in dealing with IT programs and providing data. But I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more specifically to any experience you might have in terms of being able to translate data into meaningful information for the public consumption.
Sure. So over the past 7 years that I've been working for the Office of General Services and for the state, I have had a few roles of collecting data and helping programs throughout OGS use the data. I have a lot of experience working with data visualization, specifically with one software program called Tableau, which helps to, again, it's visualizing the data, creating charts, creating graphs, helping people understand, what the data is telling them. And I think one of the biggest challenges has always been trying to make sure that the data is clearly saying what it clearly showing what we think it is showing, and it helps us to understand how things are going or how things that need to change. And so I think that over time I've gotten a lot of experience with working with different groups of people, people who have different levels of understanding of data analytics. And I think that's given me a lot of insight into some strategies for communicating some, data analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alfredo, I don't know if you can see me or not, but.
You there, Mr. Ballerin?
Thank you. Thank you again for your time and your willingness to participate and volunteer on this important committee. My question is a simple one. I'm not sure if you're involved with any of our neighborhood associations, but how much input would you give, or how much would you weigh their neighborhood association input as well as resident input when making these very, very important decisions?
Sure, that's a good question. I think that it's important to have input from the community, whether it be from these neighborhood associations or, you know, just residents as a whole. And, you know, taking that information and, you know, seeing kind of how the community feels about it one way or the other. But I think that it's hard to kind of say that, you know, one way or the other that like, yes, I will do absolutely, like, I'd want to do what the community exactly is saying, or these neighborhood associations. I think that they, you know, I'd want to get a little more information about whether it would be beneficial to the community as a whole to take, you know, recommendations from, you know, one group over another. And you know, I've never actually served on any sort of commission like this. I'm not sure what the typical practice would be, but I think that it's important to get input from all the community and kind of weigh it all against, weigh all the input against all the data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Keegan, did you have a follow-up question?
No.
Okay. All right, so we've gotten through the questions. Ms. Coran, do you have any questions for us?
Absolutely. I'm curious about what kind, how many people are you looking for the commission?
9. The
9
commission's
people.
9. Mhm.
Oh, okay. It probably said that, didn't it? Now I'm recalling that it did say that, didn't it? When do you anticipate it would be starting? This is something that, you know, in the next few months?
Well, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to try to make some final decisions.
Okay.
I'm moving ahead and then pull you all together.
Great.
Pull the groups, the folks that we select together to,
right.
To get started.
Okay, great. I don't think I have any other specific questions. Yeah.
If you do, you could always just shoot the question to Ms. Gillespie. And she'll
Great.
get it to us and we can answer it for you.
All right, that sounds great.
So thank you for your time and your interest in being a part of the commission.
Yes, thank you all so much. It was great meeting with you.
Okay, you have a good night.
You too. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Your next candidate, which I believe is Carol Washington. Carol June Washington is here. I can let her in if you're ready to begin.
Sure. Yeah. So, Ms. Washington, are you with us?
Ms. Washington, I'm not sure if you noticed, but you're muted if you're trying to respond to Chair Kimbrough.
Hello?
I'm gonna call her from my work phone. So I'm gonna leave for a little bit, but then I'll be back.
Okay.
No, son, no.
Miss June Washington is leaving. She's having like technical difficulties. She's going to try and rejoin the meeting because she was trying to share both her video and her audio, and neither were performing. So
Okay.
bear with us. There. Okay, got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, how,
I can't seem to keep the video on, but.
okay, we got you. We got both video and audio.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Good. So thank you very much for volunteering and stepping up to, to applying to be a part of this process. It's something we do every 10 years to, fix the lines to make sure there's proper representation.
Right.
So yeah, the commission is what that's about. And so we've been having applicants just explain a little bit about themselves and why they want to be a part of this commission, and then we ask questions. So I'll turn it over to you.
My name is Carol June Washington. I live at 184 West Lawrence Street in Albany. I've been in Albany about 40 years, long time. My most recent census activity was that I served on the Albany Complete Count Committee for 2020 as a representative of the NAACP. Unfortunately, we didn't hit 100,000. I think we could have done it if we didn't have to cope with COVID and the Trump administration's intent not to allow us to have sufficient resources. The census before this, we were able to have an office in Albany, and of course, we could do door-to-door follow-up, and we were really able to do better. But we could have hit the 100,000 this year, and we were really disappointed that we didn't do that.
My first experience with the census was maybe before some of you were born in 1980, when I first started working for New York State. I was with the State Department of Labor. We ran a statewide program in all of the urban centers across the state to deal with the undercount. And back then, the state actually had some money to do that. And it was actually a very successful process, because we were able to hire local people to go and knock on doors and get the numbers up. Subsequently, I was working with a Bronx assembly person and saw how the apportionment process actually worked, where Albany would call and say, what blocks do you want in your district? Oh, you don't want that block because you don't like that block. The people don't like, well, you want that other. That's how it was working then. I was kind of amazed that that's how it worked. I think today we're in a place where we have a much better concept of what gerrymandering is and how it shouldn't work and how the law should work. And we have advantage of tremendous computer capacity that we didn't have then, so that now we can really analyze our count and analyze things in a way that we can be much more equitable and know that people on this thing who know me know I'm a numbers person. So I'm into how the numbers get distributed, and I'm watching Megan laugh at me. Yes, Megan, you know I'm a numbers person. But I've looked at the numbers as we have them for the 2020 census, and there's some significant changes from the 2010 in that our Hispanic Latino population is recorded approximately 36% higher than it was in 2010. We have a higher Asian population, and that's probably the high degree of immigrants and refugees that we have in the city. And all told, we have a lower number of the total number of white residents, about 7,000 lower and about 7,000 additional total minority, which is not really a minority, but non-white residents. So we're going to really have to look at that in looking at the equity of how we distribute our wards. And right now, there were some adjustments that were made in 2017 that left us with some wards. I think we have 3 wards that are dramatically out of number. The 12th ward, the 6th ward, and one other have a very high percentage differential from the 10th also. Were you saying 10th, Megan? Yeah. So those are somewhat a result of the problems we face with things like, what do we do with the campus? And Tom Hoey knows that he got the campus somehow, in the way the manipulation went, the way we had to do it to try and make it right was to put the entire campus in one ward. And that made the 12th ward be unbalanced. Nevertheless, those are the things that I think this commission is going to have to struggle with. And I think there's 3 principles that we deal with. The first is that we make sure we respect the issue of one person, one vote. And the second is that we try and keep natural neighborhoods together as much as possible, so their representation is even. And the third is that we try not to make dramatic changes that upset the balance that people have. People don't like to have their council person change. They don't like it when their neighborhood is no longer where it was. So to try and get equity with as little disruption to the system or the city as it is now. And there is one question I would like to ask. I know that the county has put out an RFP to get resources to help them do the redistribution that has to be done on a county level. And I'm wondering if the city is looking at those kind of resources for this commission, or if we can parlay off those that the county is getting.
We haven't, but that's certainly not off the table. The thing is, we got to assemble the group, get to working, and then, plan accordingly as a team. But let me pause you for a second. That was a wonderful intro. You covered a lot. We're just going to let the council members ask a couple of questions, and then if you have more questions to ask us, you can ask us. So we'll start with Mr. Hoey.
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for applying, and your resume is outstanding, and the amount of work that you've done in the city is just fantastic. With that being said, the same question I'm asking everybody is, do you have the time commitment right now for like the next 6 months or so, and meeting bi-weekly to put into this and to stick with it to the end?
Yes, actually I do. I recently resigned from a couple of commitments that's given me a little more flexibility. So yeah, I did though ask the question about resources, because I think one of the things that the commission is absolutely going to need is somebody, or unless there's someone already who's going to be on it, with able to handle the computerized data and the manipulation of that data that's necessary to help this commission make good decisions and recommendations.
Yeah, we got some of the applicants will blow you away how good they are, and we have people with experience. So,
great.
But thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, Ms. Frederick, did you want to ask your?
So Miss June Washington did a very nice job describing her background. So I'm not sure that I necessarily have questions, but I just want to say, I think it's really important and good that you have the years of census experience, and you worked on the complete counts for this round of the census, because that's going to be, instrumental and very helpful to the team. So thank you for applying.
Oh, you're welcome. Actually, I wasn't going to, and then in November, when at one of the council meetings, Denise said that there were only like 2 letters in, I thought, oh my goodness, we better get some, enough people to really do what we need to do, because we have great opportunities with this census, but we have to be really careful to do it right.
Yes, so Ms. Keegan?
Well, thank you for stepping up. I appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, I worked with Carol very, very early on in my career. So I am very familiar with
early in yours.
It was almost 18 years ago, Carol. And I feel like you've answered the question that I've typically been asking of people, which is, what's your experience in really taking a huge amount of data, like our census data, and actually applying it in an equitable way that makes sense, and how do you map that out? But I think you've already answered that question. The other piece that people have talked about that I don't think you quite did is really the community outreach piece. And speaking to your experience, I know your experience, but I don't know that everyone in the group knows what your experience is in terms of actually being able to educate the community, and translate all of that information into a way that makes sense, and ensures that the community is really well heard throughout the process. So I was hoping that you might be able to speak a little bit more to that end.
Okay, I think I've done a lot of things like training with groups of people to do activities, but I think this is one area where some of it is educating people about what the process is about and the factors that go into it. And the other is giving people an opportunity to make some judgments themselves and express what their feelings are and what they want. What the commission might recommend may end up being adjusted based on what community people say about what we may look at something and think, oh, this is what the Beverwick neighborhood is, and we want to make sure to keep that together. But when we get talking to people, they may say, no, that's not exactly right. We really want it to be more like this because this is where we're a cohesive group and we want to maintain, if we can, the council representation we have. So we may need to then go back to the drawing board and make adjustments.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for stepping up and being willing to do this. Alfredo, do you have questions?
No, I think she answered my question in the conversation. So thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for your commitment and your dedication to our city.
Thank you.
Yeah, and mine isn't more a question, it's a comment. I mean, we need technical people that have the skill to make this stuff happen and manipulate and interpret all this stuff, but we also need the grassroots, which I see you as representing. We need folks that represent community and what people want, someone that's relatable, because that matters, because having those public meetings, engaging community and stuff that matters. I mean, that's something that you're excellent at. So
I think you're right. It's so important that people feel comfortable with the process when it's finished and that they feel they have been heard, even if you can't do what they want, that they feel they've had an opportunity to talk about it.
yes. So okay, we've gotten questions from everyone, and now we're to the part where I said, do you have any questions for us? You asked that question earlier about resources, and we're working on that. And again, we got to assemble the team and then move forward from there. You got you have some technical expertise in there. Not that the team is formed yet, but the folks that have applied, you've got planners, educators, communications folks, legal. So it's a good mix of folks in there. So that'll be something we decide you all decide what it's going to look like moving forward.
I'm so glad that there are a good group of people that have come forward. That's so important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So any other questions, comments, or do you have anything?
Your computer help. I don't know what was wrong with my computer.
Oh yeah, Danielle's there.
She's so good at that.
Yeah. Yes, and she's a little under the weather today and wasn't supposed to be here this long. Thank you so much for making this work for us, Danielle. So Carol, anything further? If not, we will say good evening and look forward to talking with you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Judith Mazza is here, if you want to bring Judith Mazza in.
Okay, yep.
I believe she's your last candidate for the night.
Yeah, we'll move ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to stay on and turn my camera off so I can get myself together to leave.
Okay. I mean, if you wanted, Ms. Keegan, if you wanted to ask your question first, you could after Ms. Mazza's intro. Hello, Ms. Mazza.
You're on mute.
All right. I
Okay,
got it.
okay. Yep, we're good. So thank you for being willing to participate and stepping up and working this very important process. It's our Reapportionment Commission. We do this every 10 years to adjust the lines to make sure there's proper representation in the wards. The commission, we're looking for 9 folks, and we're doing the interviews right now. So we've been starting by having applicants introduce themselves and just kind of briefly, say why they wanted to be a part of the commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Judith Mazza. Lived in the first ward since 1985. Been active in the first ward during most of that time, both politically and on neighborhood associations and other organizations, Citizen Action, etc. Have worked on the campaigns of our council member since 1993. So been very engaged in that process, and I've been involved in the redistricting process the last 2 times. So I'm very interested in that obviously that the first ward gets fair representation, and I get concerned about the whole city and how the wards shuffle out, so they're not, some are winding all over the place, dividing up communities and then neighborhoods, which is difficult, but I think it's something that we really have to think about over some other things that get in the way of the redistricting process. So I decided to apply for the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Mazza. So, okay.
As long as you don't call me ma'am.
Okay, but just real quick, so Ms. Keegan, did you want to ask a question before you had to jump off? If otherwise, we'll just move ahead.
Nope, you guys can go ahead in the same order.
Okay, okay, thanks. All right, Ms. Frederick?
Switching up the order. All right. Hi, Judith. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for applying. Thank you for showing interest and coming out. So you are uniquely one of 2 applicants that have experience in this process in the past, and curious to see in the prior 2 times that you worked on this Reapportionment Commission, what challenges did you potentially face as a group, and any improvements you would like to see in this new process if we were to proceed forward.
One of the challenges was how the wards get divided, and especially based on minority majority districting. There's been a lot of contention in the past. 3 times in a row, the county was taken to court on the redistricting process, and the county lost, and all the lines had to be redrawn again in order to look at where various minority groupings were and how you could get equitable representation in each of those wards. And I think the same, and we run into that all the time. And when I first got active in politics, the 1990 redistricting, the first ward went all the way over to Madison Avenue and included all of Mansion neighborhood and Lincoln Park and back over here. So, there gets to be arguments about what are neighborhoods and how do you keep people together or not divide them up. And that people get equal representation. I think that looking at the wards as they are and based on the census tracts, how do you not make radical changes unless there is a real equity issue involved in making a radical change in the makeup of the wards as they are. I mean, there are some outliers that should be looked at that people feel they don't get represented because they're not really connected to where their legislative or council members live, or they're like hanging off the edge of the ward and not really an integral part of it. So I think looking at those kinds of things are really important.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoey?
Hi, Judith. Again, very impressive resume that you have, and experience previous is something that, would be very helpful, I believe, for the commission. My question I've asked everybody is, do you have the time commitment to be able to, follow this through to the end? It's going to probably be a 6-month process, every other week meetings. Do you have the time to be able to dedicate to this?
I think so, yes.
Well, thank you. And you probably know
Do you
how
think
much
it's gonna
time's
take that
involved
long?
because you've been involved.
Why do you think it's going to take 6 months?
That's the timeline my predecessor kind of put out and gave to us. That's what's there. If you, in your experience, it hasn't taken that long, that's all the better. I mean,
yeah, I guess it can take that long. I'm just curious as to.
So in your
what's
previous
set for it. So I mean, none of you are up for re-election, so.
Right. So why the rush? I get what you're saying. So in your experience, for the two times that you were prior involved, how long approximately did it take, if you can remember?
Well, I think the city actually, in the end, wasn't done until the county did theirs. So it can take that long.
Okay.
It's probably not, it probably was, because I remember, you want to have enough meetings with constituents to hear what their feelings are about the ward makeup.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ballerin.
Thank you. My question is simple. I think you already touched base on it. First and foremost, thank you again for applying and for your dedication to our city and your many years of service. How heavily will you weigh in neighborhood associations and residents' input when it comes to making some of the difficult decisions?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is hear from neighborhood associations and constituents first. I know we want a so-called objective process, but I don't think it is that objective, because it impacts people and it impacts who their representatives are. And while I don't think that you start out looking at where, say, take the council as it is now and see where everybody lives to make sure that that line doesn't put them outside the district. people did elect all of you, and that's who they expect and trust to be their representatives. And so I think you have to look at that, but I think you also have to think about the communities and how they function together, and that you don't divide a community in half, and half is in one ward and half is in the other. Because when it comes to some situations, you go to your representative and you've got two different people who may look at things in a very different way. And so I think they're all equal pieces to this, and the deciding factor are numbers and census tracts. So you can't change that. That's part of the process. But you need to know who lives in those census tracts before you start dividing them up in a fair and an equitable way. So I think we always
Thank
have to
you. No,
listen.
that's good. No, I appreciate that. No, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and so, and I'll make my same comment that I made for Carol June for you. I mean, the technical pieces there, you guys understand all this stuff, but the grassroots that we would gain from having both a person like you and a Carol June Washington on there is the grassroots you bring to it. You care about people in the community, and over the years, I've known you. You've been pretty in sync with your community, which is important to have a person like you in this process. So I thank you for stepping up and being willing to be involved. And do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, who is taking the lead on this? Do you have somebody who has done this process, like literally drawn the maps? Do you have software to use to draw the maps?
No, we don't. We don't. We're assembling the commission right now. We have, again, a bunch of different folks with varying skill sets, and planners, some legal folks, communications folks, and some like you who've been through a couple of these reapportionments here in Albany. So that'll be helpful. Again, to look at the council as we sit, the clerk nor any of the council members, none of us were here during the last time, the previous times this were done. So we're kind of building the plane as we're flying it, so to speak. But by the time we start the process, those pieces that we need to have in place, the expertise, any software, that will be there. That'll be in place. We'll have that. So you don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So any other questions?
When do you think you're going to start?
We're looking to make our decision in the next week or so, and assemble the folks in short order, shortly thereafter, to get started.
Okay.
So yeah. So you'll be hearing from us soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. Yeah, and interest. Okay.
That's it.
And yes, thank you. And have a good night.
You too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night.
right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Kelly, you want me to make a motion to go into
deliberate.
executive? I'm sorry.
Yep. Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the commission on apportionment, and
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.